Hi, I'm Francesco Rulli. I'm the CEO of Querlo and also the Chief Digital Officer of the Opera del Duomo Florence. Today here I'm with Bjorn Bengtsson, who is the Chief Product and Supply Chain Officer for UNTUCKit. So Bjorn, if you can share with us a little bit more about your work, past, present, and future experience.
Sure, thanks a lot, first of all, for having me. I appreciate it. I am in charge at UNTUCKit for basically production supply chain, the design of the product development aspects of it, and also the technical design. So in essence, I run the process from start into our distribution center in Kentucky, where I hand it over to our logistic teams and retail stores and e-com team. I have worked 30 plus years in the industry, primarily on the product side of the business. I've done production, merchandising, design, and worked with all those three pieces. Had a very good life and career, I would say. Learned a lot of things, been exposed to many different cultures through my travel. And although I'm not a tender young man anymore, I have to say that I still love very much what I do, and I wake up every morning with enthusiasm and hunger and desire to work with what I do. So all in all, I say I'm a lucky person at this point in my career.
Fantastic, Bjorn. Indeed, we have known each other for a long, long time.
Yeah, we have known each other since I came to New York, basically, you know, in the early 90s, kind of. So,
yeah, same, exactly. We met at the beginning of our ventures.
Yeah, exactly.
So looking at the future, looking at what we believe it could be the post-COVID era, how do you think it will shape? What are going to be the challenges, and also the opportunities from your perspective, both from a supply chain perspective, but also from a retail perspective?
Well, I mean, it's a big question, of course, and it's being debated as consistently right now throughout the industry. What does it actually mean? Right now, I think the only thing we're certain about is the short-term consequences of this. The short-term consequences, of course, is more how do we get people into our stores again, and what kind of experience do we need to provide in order to get the customers to come back to the stores. As you well know, in the midst of this pandemic, there is a kind of a great fear element amongst consumers. So that is one of the challenges we're going to have to wrestle with until we see a vaccine. And after we see a vaccine, it's still probably not going to go back to completely normal instantly. So that's one of the aspects. The other aspect is, of course, how we have been totally tied down to our homes and not been able to travel, not been able to see the factories we work with and kind of nourish those relationships. So the travel aspect of this business is also somewhat a little bit in doubt. And the question we're asking ourselves, is it really possible to operate the supply chain efficiently without going and visiting factories, etc.? So in that, from all of those aspects, I think one of the major outcomes of this is that people who are digitally native have proven themselves to be more resilient against crises like this, while companies who are digital, because everybody's digital, but those are not digital native, that still relies very much on the retail network, those companies are struggling a lot more. Yes, they see their e-com business go up, but it's from a very small base usually. So even if they triple the business, it's not going to be sufficient to pay the bills for these guys. So I think it has spurred on the digital evolution and just put an injection of steroids into digital growth in the fashion industry. So I think we will, of course, see a more rapid expansion of all the digital components of what we do. So I think that is like a very brief synopsis of my thoughts on that. But, you know, I think we're in for change. The question everybody asking themselves is how much change?
Very good, thank you. So talking about digital evolution, what are your thoughts about the role of artificial intelligence, or where do you believe it can be used? Just to give some examples or inspire us about the use of artificial intelligence in this upcoming post-COVID era.
I think AI has, of course, made great inroads in fashion in the last decade or so. I think it's primarily right now being used in what we call predictive analysis, which is tracking purchase behaviors, and based on purchase behaviors amongst consumers, try to instill a certain amount also of machine learning. So you can more efficiently do predictive analysis of your consumers' behavior and how they're going to respond to different activities. So with that comes a lot of complexity, I think, and a lot of questions. Now, my personal opinion is AI will work under certain conditions for predictive analysis. It won't work under all conditions. I do think it relies heavily on, of course, predictability, which is the purpose of it. But in my experience, fashion consumers are not really predictable. So it applies to certain segment of the target market that is predictable. There's other segments of the market that is not so easy to predict, and where the AI might be a little bit less efficient. I think AI shows great promises in this arena. I still believe that the human aspect of interpretation is extremely important. And we have more tools in our hands to do this. But at the end of the day, we're working with fashion. Fashion product is rational, but it's also highly emotional. And you need to satisfy both of those arguments. And if you rely only on the rational arguments where AI is very good, then you might very well put yourself at a path that leads downwards or doesn't help you to grow your business or stimulate your business and take it in new paths. As we are basing, AI is based on past behavior and predicting the future. So I still think that the human aspect and the human interaction with data is going to become even more important. It would help me to gather data and help me to give advice and possible scenarios, but it's still going to be up to me to interpret this data and decide whether this analysis is correct and can be used to build a new strategy for the company. So I think the complement of the two is very important. I think AI has been a little bit overemphasized. Data in general has been overemphasized in the industry. And we stopped talking about other things, for example, design, which is still a very important part of fashion. It's almost like design has taken the back seat and data is taking over the front seat. I think we need to reverse that relationship and look at AI and data more as a tool rather than the solution for all our problems. AI, as very well known too, has made great inroads in chatbots, and I think it has it has a more important function almost to fill in chatbots than it has really on analytics side of it, because chatbots is a more simplistic version of AI, and the tools therefore, or the opportunity for learning there, machine learning, is much greater. And I think the thing with chatbots that is going a little bit wrong right now is when I interact with these chatbots and the company wants to lead me to believe they're actually talking with a real person. Most consumers know I'm not talking to a real person, I'm talking to a computer. As you disclose that to the customer, I think chatbots can become very, very efficient because I have a lot of questions when I go on a site or I want something from Amazon or whatever it might be. If I have a smart chatbot, I don't care if I talk to a computer as long as you give me the right answers. And the more personal you are in your answers, the better off I am. But don't try to lead me believe that I'm talking to a real human, because I know I'm not. So I think the chatbot industry in general has taken the stance that we're going to fool the consumers so they think they talk to real customer service rep. That is not the right approach. There's no way you can hide that at this point. If you still make very sure the audience understands that you're talking to a computer, then I think people will enjoy it much more, and many people also won't get so irritated by the responses. So I think from a customer service standpoint, I think chatbots is a very viable option for the future to deal with a very large amount of customers and their concerns and help them to answer the first questions as they enter on the site, or they have very basic questions and even some more complicated questions. Chatbots have proven to be able to service a lot of different customer requests and provide information instead of a human interaction. And I think that is a really interesting aspect of chatbot. The other fields of AI in fashion are really not that prominent. These are the two big areas that we really talk about, and I think also the two areas that shows the most promises.
Thank you. Thank you. And if people want to learn more about your work, what's the best way to learn more?
Well, I work full-time for UNTUCKit, but I'm also a part-time faculty member, part-time associate professor at Parsons. So I have a couple of things I do in my life, and I'm passionate about both. And for more information, I'm, of course, available under Bjorn Bengtsson on LinkedIn. And you get my full story there, in a sense, from a professional perspective. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much.